Well, I'm going to talk about 3D printing in a clinical setting. Well, just a bit about my background. I'm an honorary lecturer at the University College London, School of Pharmacy. I'm a colleague of the previous speaker, Mine Orlu. I'm going to try to have a pointer, yeah. But I'm from the School of Pharmacy. We founded a company that is this company here, FabRx, that is a spin-out company from the university, and is actually focused on the development of 3D printing medicines and all the technology around the development of these medicines. I'm also a part-time lecturer at the University of Santiago de Compostela, but most of my time I'm fully working at FabRx, and I'm trying to promote this technology. So many speakers spoke before about 3D printing. There are different technologies for 3D printing and different approaches. I just want to show what would be for us the ideal situation of 3D printing. We think that 3D printing is going to be used as a main technology to prepare personalized dose medicines. I imagine that in the future there will be a patient that this patient will have a therapeutic need, either because this patient doesn't feel very well, or there is an analytical test or a diagnostic test that is saying that something is wrong. So this patient is going to go to the medical doctor, to the GP. The GP is going to give a digital prescription with medication if the disease or the problem can be solved with medication. This digital prescription is going to be sent to the pharmacy. In the pharmacy is going to be transformed in a 3D digital design that is going to be sent to the printer, and the printer is going to prepare the dose, and this dose is going to be personalized. So it's going to prepare the right dose in the shape of a medicine, and this medicine is going to be administered to the patient. And depending on if this medicine is effective or not, or is necessary to change the dose, we will continue this circle, adapting the dose at each step, at each circle. So obviously, to make this a reality, we will need a software integration in the hospital. We will need a specific software to create the medicines. We will need a pharmaceutical printer. We will need to know a lot about formulation development. So we need different types of formulations with different drug release. And obviously, we will need a new generation of diagnostics and tests. And I imagine that in the future, also this whole system is going to be controlled, and each software controlled by artificial intelligence. So if I said this a couple of years ago, everybody would say, oh, this is impossible. It's not possible. It's going to take 20 years to reach this point. But actually, we did it 2 years ago, and we managed to close this circle. And we did a study in a hospital where we prepared 3D printed medicines. So we moved a 3D printer to a hospital in Spain, and we prepare medicines for a rare metabolic disease that is called maple syrup urine disease. The patients with this disease have a deficiency in one enzyme, so they cannot metabolize branch chain amino acids like leucine and isoleucine. So these patients, if they have like higher levels of leucine, isoleucine, or valine, they have like toxic effects and accumulation of these amino acids. And if they have lower levels, the growing of these patients is not normal, and they have a lot of health problems. So it's very important to keep the levels of these amino acids in a specific range to have like a normal growing and a healthy state. So what we did in this study is a rare metabolic disease. So we selected all the patients that they had in a hospital, and there were at that point 4 patients from 3 to 16 years old. And they were having like different doses of isoleucine in different days, going from 50 to 200. The conventional, or the way that they were prepared this medication, this amino acid, we were using only one amino acid in this study, only isoleucine. They were just weighting the amount of isoleucine that they needed with a balance. So the pharmacist in the hospital waited with a balance and putting this powder inside capsules. So we see that this method is really inefficient, and there is no commercial tablets or capsules for these patients. So what we thought is, well, maybe using 3D printing, we can have an automatic production system where we can incorporate these amino acids into medicine. So what we decided is to test for the first time if we can get good results comparing the conventional capsules that are, let's say, handmade in the hospital with the 3D printed tablets, and evaluate the levels of isoleucine in the patients and the acceptability of the medicines. So we prepare formulations with 6 different flavors: lemon, coconut, banana, strawberry, orange, and raspberry, and we prepare them with different doses and with different colors. These formulations are prepared with a technology that many previous speakers spoke about, is semi-solid extrusion. So we use a kind of syringe to prepare a material that is extruded, and these formulations are chewable formulations, so are similar to candies, and they have different flavors as well, so are very well accepted for children. The drug levels in the patients, comparing these formulations with the previous formulations, and also the acceptability. The results of the study were very positive. Here we have the levels of the amino acid blood levels from the capsules and from the printlets. They are very similar, and they are all over the place. But if we compare the mean and the standard deviation, we see that the mean is very similar. So capsules and printlets are very similar, but the standard deviation is lower in printlets. The printlets are the 3D printed tablets that we prepare. And this probably is due because the bioavailability of the isoleucine is, it doesn't change that much if we have it as a printlet, because it's just take it without water or without anything. It's always in the same conditions. But what the patients used to do with these capsules, or the parents of the patients who used to do with these capsules, is open the capsules and mix this amino acid with food. So it's probably due to the variability in the bioavailability when these amino acids are absorbed, that we have like a higher distribution of levels. So what is important to mention here is that these patients, to measure these blood levels, didn't go to the hospital. So they were at home, and they were sending dried blood spots, so just a small sample of blood in a paper, and this was sent to the hospital by post, and then in the hospital they were checking the levels, and then depending on that we were manufacturing or preparing the formulations for them, and these formulations were sent by post to the patients. So regarding the flavors, the different flavors and colors, we checked the acceptability. 5 was the best one, and 0, 1 was the worst one. The best accepted one was the orange and lemon, but we were able to find a flavor that was suitable for each of the patients. So each patient had a favorite flavor, so we could select that one. The coconut and raspberry were probably the worst one. It makes sense because this study was done in Spain, and coconut is not a normal fruit that we have in Spain, and because Spain is not a tropical paradise, so it makes sense. Probably it's because children were not used to these flavors. Well, I forgot to mention, similar to the previous study that Dr. Mine Orlup mentioned before, we asked the children to select regarding the flavor and the color in a phase scale from 5 to 1, if the flavor was excellent, good, average, poor, or unacceptable. And this is how we calculate the information about acceptability. So the outcome from this study was that it could be possible to print medicines in a hospital, because before this study, no one printed medicines in a hospital, and everybody was talking about, oh, let's print medicines in a hospital, but no one was doing that. So we proved that it was possible to print medicines in a hospital. These medicines were very well accepted by children, and the levels of isoleucine were similar to the other formulations, or even better, because it was a tighter control. But we realized that we need to take under control many different parameters that we didn't thought before. So we were very worried about the formulation, but we were not so worried about the 3D printer or the software to use the printer. So at the beginning, we thought that just having the formulation, that would be great, but we realized that not. So we decided to actually create our own formulation, our own hardware, our own 3D printer, and our own software. So we realized that there are three cornerstones, we call them the three cornerstones of 3D printing. That one is formulation, that is actually the materials that you include into the printer. Then the printer itself, that there are many different 3D printing technologies, as you saw before. So you need to select the right one depending on the formulation, and also it's a printer that is adapted for pharmaceutical products. And also the software, because the pharmacists, they don't want to know anything about G codes or STL files that are the type of files that are sent to the printer. They just want to select the dose and just print the dose. Yeah. So I just have here a short video about how the system that we develop look like. We develop a printer that we call it MediMaker, and the logo is just a mixture of a capsule and a digital fingerprint. So the idea is that this printer is going to be placed in a hospital and is going to be used to prepare personalized medicines for the patients. This printer uses three different extrusion material technologies. So extrusion material is one of the big categories in 3D printing. And inside this extrusion material technology, we have FDM, semi-solid extrusion, and direct powder extrusion. That is a new nozzle where you just mix the powders, excipients and drugs, and you put them in the nozzle and you print the medicines directly. So the next thing that we thought that is important is the software. So we wanted to integrate the software that we develop with the software that they use in the hospitals. In the hospitals, they have software there. They have access to the patients, to the prescriptions, to the formulations that they prepare, the compounding formulations, or in England, they are called pharmaceutical specials. So we develop a software that can be integrated in the software that they have in the hospitals. So we can have access to the patients. These are fake patients, obviously, but in the patients, we have some formulations that are validated. So we know in advance which formulations we can prepare. And then if we select a patient, we can see, for example, here a prescription. So we can select this prescription, and then it says the materials that we need to include in the printer. So the materials that we want to print. So we need to actually scan them using a data matrix that is included with the printer. So we scan them, this is activated, the printer knows that we have the right material inside. And we also have to scan the blister packing where we are going to print. So we are going to print directly on top of the blister packing that then we close and we give to the patient. And this blister packing has also a data matrix, so we can carry on doing the traceability of these formulations. And after we do that, we just select printing, and the printer does everything. Because in the prescription, it's written the number of tablets that we are going to print, the dose, and obviously all the information about printing temperature, printing time, all that technical information. And then regarding formulations, just to mention that we were talking about oral dosage forms only, but it's possible, I think previous speakers mentioned as well, to print medical devices, or it's possible to print suppositories. We published recently an article, we were printing tacrolimus suppositories. These suppositories, we haven't tested them in humans yet, but it's possible to do that without the need of molds. So just with the semi-solid extrusion, you can print these materials. I think in the future, I like this concept of Nespresso capsules, because I imagine a future where not the pharmacists are preparing the mixtures of excipients and drugs and they put them in the printer. I imagine a future where we have something similar to the capsules of Nespresso, that we select the right capsules, we put the capsule, we select the prescription, and we print just the right dose. The similar way we do with the coffee, that we select the capsule and we get the coffee I imagine a future where we are going to have a capsule that is the raw material with the drug inside. We select this drug, we put it in the printer, we go to the software, and we don't need to do anything else because the printer is going to do everything for us. Well, just to mention that all the work that we are doing is not done alone. We have partnerships and collaborations with many companies, pharmaceutical companies, excipient companies, universities, hospitals. We are working with people in all the continents, I said. This is a picture of the group in London. So we have a big research group led by Professor Abdul Basit, and we are very happy to work and collaborate with everyone, basically, because what we want is actually to move 3D printing forward and to move it to the clinic and improve the quality of life of patients. I always like to finish just with this sentence that say that don't judge this technology from the early manifestations. I think we have great data and we are improving, but we need to think about what we can do in the future with this new technology, because we can think about implants and other potential drug delivery systems. And I think this technology is going to cause a paradigm shift in the pharmaceutical industry. Probably the pharmaceutical industry didn't realize yet, but I think it's actually the future. And if you are interested about knowing more about 3D printing, my colleagues Abdul Basit and Simon Gaisford edited a book about 3D printing of pharmaceuticals that I think is quite interesting, and it has the relevant information. And thank you for your time.